Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nostalgia Goggles. It's our fourth episode. I'm so excited. Man, I love doing this. I'm your host today, Jeremy the Adam Adams, as always, and this is the show where we take a look back at our childhood, the movies we loved when we were a kid, look at them again now, and then fight it out with our friends who pick movies of their own. That's right. So with me today is my co-host. He's with me as always, Renee Villarreal, Red Ranger. RJ, how are you doing today, man? Are you excited for today's episode?
Oh yeah, this is about one of my favorite movie type genres ever. I'm just excited to just talk about this subject.
One of the first
movies, actually, both movies in general.
Oh, nice. And this was one of the first ones you pitched when we were just starting to talk about this. So I'm definitely excited for this one. And today we have our second guest. He was supposed to be our first guest because we really were excited to do this one, but scheduling, but hey, it was worth the wait. We got him. Ryan Permison, the Hunter. How are you feeling, man, to be here for your first episode of Nostalgia Goggles, talking about a movie you liked as a kid?
Oh, this is great. I couldn't think of a better way to continue on with this week. Whatever day this airs on, Throwback Thursday, hashtag that. It's awesome. I love going back into the past and seeing what we liked as a kid and looking at it with a different set of eyes now that we're older, mature, and wiser, even though you can't see the gray hairs that is under this electrifying hat that I'm wearing for you all today. So this is exciting. I'm happy to be a part of this new series and just happy to be here. Let's have some fun with this one.
Let's have some fun, and we're so happy to have you. And then finally, we have our producer today running the feed for us. He's not going to be too involved, but he'll be there to comment on whatever insanity we get into, maybe throw us out some facts, and just be maybe a voice of reason if we go into deep nostalgia craziness. So Chance, the Titan Ellison, how are you feeling to be here for your second time running Nostalgia Goggles?
Yeah, my second time on this show, but we are in trouble if I end up being the voice of reason. But it should be a really fun show with some really fun guests. So I'm ready to get started by talking.
All right, let's do it. So every week we pick a theme, and then I pick a movie from the 80s. RJ picks a movie from the 90s that fit into that one theme. And the theme today, as everyone said, is a fun one. It is martial arts kids movie sequels. Kids movie martial arts sequels. Oh, that's right. So for the 80s, I picked a movie that I absolutely loved as a kid. I think I watched it maybe 10 or 15 times. It is The Karate Kid Part 2. That's right. Not Part 1, Part 2. The second in the Ralph Macchio Karate Kid series. I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of background noise from somebody.
We're getting some feedback from somebody.
Yeah.
Is that Ryan? I'm sorry. I can't get
it. It is Ryan.
Someone's talking.
Ryan.
Yeah, sorry. We got the little ones over here.
Right. Okay,
they're on their way out, though, so don't worry.
No, not a problem. All right, so our second movie, the one that RJ picked today, is Three Ninjas Kick Back. That's right. It's a movie in the 90s, Three Ninjas franchise. They made a few of those back in the 90s, and so that's the movie he picked, and those are the two we're doing today. So let's jump right into this. We start the episode with what we call the description. That's right. Each of us is just going to tell you a little bit about the movie. What is the movie? What's the movie about? And then how it fits into today's theme. So I'm going to go out of order and start with RJ. I'm going to let RJ, since he's probably the most excited, he's the one that really wanted to get this one going today. RJ, what is Three Ninjas Kick Back? Tell us a little bit about the movie.
All right, so Three Ninjas Kick Back is technically the third chronologically in the series, but the second release, there were distribution rights fiascos going on, but it stars Victor Wong as a grandpa who has three grandsons, played by Max Elliott Slade, Sean Fox, and J. Evan Bonifant. And throughout the series, he is basically teaching his kids karate. He teaches them, karate. That's what they do. They go visit their grandpa in the summer. In this sequel, their grandpa has to travel to Japan for this big ninja tournament, where he is to pass down a special dagger to the winner of it.
Did we lose RJ?
And we
okay, I thought that was
end up.
Okay.
Basically, it ends up with the grandsons having to go to Japan to help their grandpa, who is also being chased down by an old rival. They meet a girl. It's very 90s, but it fits into the theme because it's like I said, it's a sequel to the original Three Ninjas. And what's really fun is for both our movies here is these are sequels where our main characters visit Japan.
Absolutely.
And, really get more into the karate culture. So it's really fun. It was a really fun 90s movie. A lot of, 90s humor, kind of stuff like that. It's just an overall fun movie for me as a kid. It was actually my introduction into the series. I saw this Three Ninjas before I ever saw Three Ninjas Knuckle Up, or the other one.
Yeah, you didn't mention baseball, by the way.
That's a thing.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
a thing.
there's also baseball. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
also
baseball.
Oh, God, that's a dirty title.
I don't know. Is baseball big 90s? I mean, I guess there were a lot of baseball kids movies in the 90s, so I guess they're kind of
a
cashing in
lot
on
of
that.
90s movies threw in baseball. I mean, we were just talking about Hook last week, and baseball's a big part of that one.
It is.
Oh yeah.
All right, so that basically gives you Three Ninjas Kick Back. So I'm going to talk about the movie I picked, which is The Karate Kid Part 2. So, of course, The Karate Kid, the John Avildsen movie, came out in 1984. He was the director of Rocky, decided to do another Rocky-type movie, but this one was all about teenagers. It was about a kid named Daniel LaRusso who moved to California from New Jersey, was getting bullied by these kids from a karate dojo called Cobra Kai. And they were kicking his ass, making his life hard. So the handyman in his apartment building, Mr. Miyagi, became his trainer, his teacher in the art of karate. And eventually he gets his self-confidence. He goes up against the Cobra Kai kids in a big karate tournament. And it's just a great, just one of the great 80s crowd-pleasing movies and one of my all-time, still so close to my heart. I'm so excited we're going to get a new YouTube series, which gives some of the original actors from the original film back, kind of continues the story. It's called Cobra Kai. But in any case, of course, in the 80s, if a movie was a hit, it had to have a sequel. So, the guys, they were going back and forth. What are we going to do for a second one? Let's have it be the story of the evil Cobra Kai leader, John Kreese, getting revenge. No, let's have it be a Miyagi story about Japan. No, let's do both of them. So they decided they would do the Miyagi story going back to Japan first, and then they would do the John Kreese revenge story second, and those eventually did become Karate Kid 2 and Karate Kid 3. So the second film, they brought back Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita, and this is Pat Morita's, as Miyagi finds out his father is very ill, and he has to go back to Okinawa, an island in Japan where he grew up, and we find out there's a whole lot of history there. He has a history with an old friend, his best friend as a child, who now something happened when they were both in love with the same woman, and there was a big feud, and the guy basically challenged him to an honor fight, a fight to the death, and Miyagi didn't want to do it. So he gave it all up. He gave up the girl and he fled to the U.S. And that's how he ended up over here. But this old bad blood is still there. So Miyagi has to go back. And then Daniel does wrangle it so that he can go back. Daniel wrangles it so he can go back with Mr. Miyagi to Japan, to Okinawa, and the whole movie takes place there. And there is the old rival of Miyagi. There is the old love interest of Miyagi, which he kind of rekindles something with. There's a new love interest for Daniel, who he meets over there, and then there is another rival for Daniel, another guy. Let me pull up the names just a second here. That's Chosen. Chosen is a younger guy. He basically works for Miyagi's old rival, and that guy kind of runs the industry on the island. He's a big wig, and the Chosen is the guy that works for him. And this guy, picks a big fight with Danielson, and then of course it all leads up to a big climactic fight, as you always have to have in these movies. So yeah, that's Karate Kid 2, and it's I wouldn't say it's as 80s as the first Karate Kid, because the first Karate Kid has so many 80s pop songs. It's just like it's California at that time. It's so 80s. But this movie, it takes a little more of a kind of a traditional feel to it, but there's still plenty of 80s in here. There's a scene where they go to a military bar, and there's military guys, almost kind of a Top Gun flavor to that scene. And there is one of the most gorgeous 80s power ballads you could ever find by Peter Cetera. It comes in at the end. One of my favorite 80s cheese-tastic songs. So you want some 80s, you got it in this movie. And of course, it does fit into the theme of martial arts sequels in Japan. So those are our two movies today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next section, which is the nostalgia review. This is where we transport ourselves back to when we were a kid, put ourselves back into our shoes of the young kid that saw this movie for the first time. So I am going to go ahead and jump back over to RJ and have RJ start. So when did you first see Three Ninjas Kick Back? How did you come to this? Tell me a little bit about your history with the whole franchise, and then just give us your review. What would young RJ have said about this movie and the franchise in general?
Well, as we recall from our first episode with when I was talking about Surf Ninjas, I mentioned how Surf Ninjas was one of the movies I always grabbed at Blockbuster back.
Oh yes, absolutely.
This was number 2. This was the other movie that if Surf Ninjas was unavailable, believe me, it was. Surf Ninjas was sometimes unavailable. But I would grab Three Ninjas Kick Back. It was just a movie I saw. 3 kids in multicolored costumes. I was a big Power Rangers fan. Yeah, I'm going to grab this and see what it's about. Like I said, this was my introduction into the series. I didn't know about the other 2 just because of how young I was. These movies came out about right the time I was born. So, of course, they're already on VHS release and have been in circulation for a while by the time I'm old enough to consciously choose these titles. But, man, this movie was fun. I mean, just this movie was a blast. I mean, just the idea of like, oh yeah, like every summer I just get to go learn how to do martial arts with my grandpa. Cool. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? And the idea of like having these nicknames, you know, the main characters are actually Samuel, Jeffrey, and Michael, but you never call them that. You call them by their nicknames given to them by their grandfather, which is Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum. I had a very strong connection with Tum Tum as a kid because I would eat everything. I ate absolutely everything. I was always eating. I always had a snack. So I was, and of course, me being the baby of my family, I always very well connected with him. And I mean, the movie was just fun to watch. It was just fun seeing them do karate. Of course, outsmarting adults like most kid movies about that were, making adults look like fools. A lot of slapstick humor, you know. It was more about them like hiding, using like ninja hiding skills and tricking people into like 90s kind of traps rather than them actually fighting. Them going to Japan was cool. Like who would want to go to Japan, especially at that time? It was like martial arts was the thing. All the cartoons on TV were about martial arts. The biggest things, movies were about martial arts. So this was a real big thing. This was a real quick grab that anybody can do, make these small franchises that kids would watch, because most of the movies and cartoons were about adults and teenagers doing karate. This was about kids doing karate. So it was much more fun and relatable for someone like me. And it was, to me, it was also very, I guess I'll get into it later once you go into your movie, but there are a lot of similarities for me kind of almost with Karate Kid Part 2.
There are. It's kind of crazy how many parallels there are. Like I was like, wow. You know,
yeah,
it probably wasn't accidental, but who knows?
I'm sure it wasn't, honestly, but we'll get more into that, I guess, when we talk about later.
I have to ask you, they actually recast 2 of the kids from the first 2 movies, the first 2 that were filmed, but this was the first movie you saw. So, like, are these like your 3? Like, do you consider these like these 3 kids, these 3 actors?
Like,
okay.
Yeah, these were my 3 ninjas. Like when I saw the first 2, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I was like, that's not Rocky. I was like, the only one who is still the same is Colt. He's the only one who was on in all 3.
Not my 3 ninjas.
Not my 3 ninjas.
Yeah, but yeah, so it was strange a little bit once I saw the 2 before and finding that out that like, oh, these are before. Like that's not Rocky.
Was it
Tum Tum a little bit?
Yeah,
like they did a little bit of better job with Tum Tum, but still, like it clearly wasn't him. And then don't even get me started on High Noon and Mega Mountain, which unfortunately is probably my favorite.
Kids.
But we're not going to go into that.
All different kids. Did you remember it like throwing you for a loop? Like these aren't like, was it confusing to you, or it was just par for the course and you just rolled with it?
I mean, like once I found out they were the first ones, I assumed it was one of those things. Like my assumption was not a casting issue. It was in my head. Movies and TV shows back then of like if you're making a sequel right away and you want your actors to look older and your actors just aren't cutting it, you cast older. So that was my mentality, that they just casted older. Like, okay, Colt was still about the same age, so he was all right, but they needed an older Rocky and they needed an older Tum Tum. That was my thinking of it. So it didn't confuse me. I was just like, okay, that's what we do in TV and movies nowadays. If you need to cast somebody older, you cast them older. If we need a year, if we need a time jump, you just cast them older.
I think in the 80s and 90s, like continuity and stuff like that was not given much thought to. Would you agree? I feel like that's a recent thing where people really care about continuity and chronology. And I think we, as kids, we just kind of were used to it. Like, oh, this one is a different actor. This one is a different tone. Like, we were just used to that. Like, they would change actors in between TV seasons and stuff like that. So,
actually, I was a continuity douche when I was a kid.
You were?
I was introduced to continuity very quickly because my mom watched soap operas and my grandma's watched novellas. So continuity is very important. You can't just act like something didn't happen. Like,
by the way, team All My Children. I love All My Children.
General Hospital was the one.
Oh, you're General Hospital. Damn it. All right.
Yeah. But so continuity was always a big thing for me. Trust me, the one that did throw me for a loop was High Noon at Mega Mountain, because I was like, all right, now it's just completely different kids. What the hell is going on? Yeah. Like, y'all look nothing like them. Y'all all different. You're actually shorter. You look younger, and you're supposed to be older than the kickback kids.
I haven't seen that one. Is it the same parents?
Oh my God, is it? I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not as bad then.
But the grandpa.
Yeah,
the only one who did all four is their grandpa.
All right. Okay.
And he served no purpose in the fourth one. He's literally there.
Really? Oh, that's a bummer. He's like the heart of those movies up to that point. That's a bummer.
Well, that's basically what he's there for. He's there to remind you this is why these kids know karate. But back to Three Ninjas. Like I said, it was just a super fun movie. You got to see like Japan. The villains they get to like mess with, as a kid, it was like the kind of guys you just like want to make look stupid. So it was a really fun movie. It has a really nice ending. Like you said, baseball earlier, they win the big baseball game and they beat up the bullies. So it's a really nice, fun 90s movie.
Yeah. So yeah, if you just had to give us like the quick review of what young RJ would have said, maybe watching that movie for the first time, like what would he have said?
He said, "I need this movie in my life. And I'm really upset that I can't find it and buy it for myself, that I have to keep renting it from Blockbusters, but I will keep renting it from Blockbusters."
Oh, it will
Sometimes I would literally, when we had to go return a movie, I didn't drop it in the box. I would just take it back inside and be like, I would like to re-rent this.
All right, awesome. So let's see if Ryan's still here. Ryan, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Awesome. So we're going to
I never left.
We're going to jump over to you and just tell us about how you came to I think you actually might have seen them in order. How did you come to the Three Ninjas series, and what was your first experience with Three Ninjas Kick Back?
Well, with the beginning of the series, I got into it from the very beginning, from the very first one. I loved it so much. And then when they came out with the second one, when the cast was changed up a little bit, it was like, it's a little odd, but okay, I can roll with this. It's
How did you see him, by the way? Did you go to the theater, see him on video?
I saw them both on VHS when that was a thing, folks. VHS was a thing.
VHS comes up a lot on this show.
Yes, it does. Yes, and for good reason too, I might add. No, I saw the first one through VHS at my local library. I checked it out, watched it, loved it, and then I watched the second one, with, in this case, Three Ninjas Kick Back, and I ate it up. I just ate it all up because of the fight scenes, and I think to a certain degree, I think the soundtrack kind of got me too. It was it's a cheesy 90s beat, but I don't care because I was eating it up with a spoon. Because
they're very funky soundtracks in those movies.
They are. And with the second one, with them traveling overseas, I was like, oh, this is cool, because I don't think about traveling overseas to another part of the world. I do that through television. Thank you for that, television. So I did that. I watched the movie. I ate it up with like a spoon. And then when the love interest came in for Rocky, I was like, all right, I can roll with this. But then when she showed up her fighting skills wearing the white karate gi, in this case, it was kind of like the White Ranger, RJ. When she was like, oh, I can roll with this, man. I like the tournament. I like this kind of an attitude. I wish we would have gotten more, but the tournament, I would have wanted to see a lot more of that. And just the great.
We'll get to that.
I know, and the soundtrack just kicking in there every couple of beats. It was like, yes, give this fight song to me. So, but no, it was great. I had a lot of fun with it. I ate it up with this, like crazy, and the grandpa, the supporting characters. You can love them or hate them, but they were fine for what they were doing. Parents, the mother freaking out when she reads the letter. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so Home Alone, man. So Home Alone. But no, they're fun. It's a fun movie. It really is. One of the critics actually stated that it crosses between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Home Alone. I would say it's the perfect description of all four of these movies, if you want to count the fourth one as canon, even though
some Karate Kid, definitely some Karate Kid flavor.
Some Karate Kid in there, but some of us wouldn't like to consider the fourth one canon. But nonetheless, the fight scenes were good. The what do you call it? The soundtrack was good. But I will admit,
we'll get into your current thoughts later. But
we'll worry about it later. But as a kid, it was fun.
And RJ always talks about how, like, in the 90s, martial arts was a big thing, and that was a big draw for him. Like, was that huge for you? I'm sure with Power Rangers and everything, like, anything involving martial arts and things like that were big?
I would say so, yeah. That would apply to this case as well, yeah. People were fighting, laying the smacketh down on some bullies that were messing with them, because I got bullied like everyone else growing up as a little kid, so I can relate to that in a way. So I can relate to a few of the things that the characters were going through in Three Ninjas Kickback. All
right, awesome. So, yeah, just if you could just give me, like, maybe one sentence of what young Ryan would have said after seeing Three Ninjas Kickback for the first time, the nostalgia review.
He would probably say, this is fun and exciting, and I dig the tunes and the fight scenes. Just give me any kind of movie that has this, and I will be satisfied for the rest of eternity.
Nice. Eternal satisfaction for young Ryan. Right. Okay, so let's jump over back to the 80s for me. So, yes, as I hinted before, Karate Kid was a huge deal. I actually didn't see any of the Karate Kid movies in the theater. So, again, this is a big VHS talk.
Jeremy did not see it in the theaters?
Yeah, but believe it or not, I don't get to use my catchphrase today. It's shocking. But yeah, these movies were, you walk into the video store in 1985 and the Karate Kid is one of the first things you see. Like that was huge. Like everyone was trying to rent that movie. And like RJ said, I think in our first episode, like you couldn't just buy movies back then. Like if you tried in the 80s to buy a VHS, it was like $80. So like they would charge you an arm and a leg for some reason. So we would rent them over and over. So yeah, I remember Karate Kid being rented a lot, always being in my house. And, whenever I went to it was actually like my grandparents that would actually had money for me to rent movies. So they would, anytime I was at my grandparents' house, I was renting these movies. So yeah, I probably saw Karate Kid in 84, 85. I was 5, 6 years old, maybe a little young for it, but I loved it. It had action. It had Mr. Miyagi, it had everything that I wanted as a kid. And then when the second one came out, yeah, I think I maybe loved that one even more at the time, maybe just because it was, I don't know, something about it had a little more of an adventure theme with they're leaving the US, they're going to Japan. It takes you to this kind of other place that, for a kid in the 80s, like I just feel like I wanted to escape. So I felt like this second movie, you find out about Mr. Miyagi's past. You get this cool island. It's a very beautifully filmed movie. There's a castle on the island that, you're thinking the whole movie, oh, that castle's got to come into play at some point. They're going to go to that castle. And they had like matte paintings in the background in one shot of the castle. It's like, ooh, this is going to be cool. So yeah, I loved it. There's a tornado, hurricane sequence in the film, which I remember was also one of the standout moments for me. It was a little weird going back and I'm like, where's that hurricane sequence? Like, we're like 90 minutes into this movie and the hurricane sequence hasn't happened yet. That was like the main thing I remember. But yeah, for whatever reason, that part stood out for me as a kid. I thought that was awesome. And yeah, it was just, Daniel, I think he's kind of, in the first movie, Daniel is just kind of the everyman teenager. Like Daniel is he could be any of us. He's the kid that was bullied. And, throughout my life, I think that movie's always resonated because as Ryan said, a lot of us here at Full Metal Media are people that may have been bullied, might have gone through stuff, kind of being nerds, being the kids that we are. So I went through a lot of that. So that Karate Kid always resonated for me on that. And that's kind of what Daniel was in the first movie. But in the second movie, I think he's more like, there's a little more wish fulfillment. Like you kind of look up to Daniel in this movie. Like he's sticking up for his friend, Mr. Miyagi. He's doing selfless things. He's doing some more heroic things. And I think he became more of the traditional kind of 80s action hero in a way in this movie. So I think that always resonated for me as a kid, and I love that. And like I said, I'll watch this movie over and over. This was one I always rented. And then, I do have to admit, part 3 came out in 89, and I love that one and rented that one a lot too. And that's definitely a sore spot for me because, I'm sorry. We're going to get to it eventually, but that movie, oh boy. So, but no. Oh boy, indeed. Maybe we'll pair that one with Mega Mountain, and you can come on and do some ranting there, Ryan.
Oh boy.
So, yeah. So
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so Karate Kid 2 was a huge deal. And then one of the little thing I have to mention is that later on, I think it was in 89, there was a Karate Kid Saturday morning cartoon. And Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s were huge. That was my goddamn life, was that every morning you get up at 6:30 Saturday morning, you're watching cartoons till noon. And then when that cartoon came out, it incorporated a lot of stuff from the second movie. I would say it was actually probably more heavily inspired by the second movie than it was from the first. It was them going to Japan, going all over the world, going on missions, and it had more of that adventurous tone to it. So so I always kind of like that cartoon and the movie kind of go together in my memory, very fond memories. And I think young 7-year-old Jeremy seeing Karate Kid 2 would say, Daniel's so awesome, and I think you'll know what that means. You'll know what that means if you saw the movie. So, all right, that's the nostalgia reviews. We're gonna jump to the next section. I'm just gonna go ahead and, since you've just kind of been sitting there, Chance, is there anything you wanna jump in before we keep going here? Any facts? Any thoughts so far?
Factually, I'm fact checking as you go along. I'm gonna make that my new position here on the show.
Okay.
Factually, you're all pretty sound. I can confirm the parents in Three Ninjas Hiding in Mega Mountain were not the same as in they did recast them.
Yeah.
Arden was right. The only one to be not recast throughout the whole series was the grandfather. And it's funny. I did watch Karate Kid. Karate Kid 2, I will contest, is still the best Karate Kid movie aside from the original, aside from Cobra Kai, which I will say looks awesome so far. Can't wait for that show.
Cobra Kai looks awesome. It looks awesome.
Three Ninjas Kick Back. I didn't have those VHS as a kid, so I didn't watch them until I was a grown adult.
Oh, and, me too.
Man, those are movies that, if I saw them when I was a kid, I think I would have dug them because they speak to it's ninjas and kids and everything I want to be in this world. That's so freaking cool. But watching it with an adult, oh god, they're cheesy messes. They're completely goofy.
We'll get there.
Bizarre.
We'll probably have more to say about that.
They're not good. They are really not good. But they're kid English fulfillment, which is what pretty much all kid movies.
All right. So continuing on,
as far as Karate Kid 2.
Yeah.
As far as Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 2 I thought was fun and enjoyable. One of my favorite moments in Karate Kid franchise period. It's the beginning where Mr. Miyagi's got the Cobra Kai sensei right in front of him, like, enemy gets no mercy. Ha! And then he's like, to
the next.
I still love that part. It's hilarious.
That is one of the ultimate Mr. Miyagi moments.
I will say does not hold up, but I will keep my verdict for I'll keep my verdict for who wins the day after the episode.
So let's continue on that. Let's continue on the theme that Chance kind of started there, and we're going to go into the segment I called "Taking the Nostalgia Goggles Off." So this is where we're going to take a look back at our movie, the one that we chose, and we're going to imagine, I never saw this movie as a kid. I'm coming to this movie for the first time now, and we're going to start with RJ and Ryan again, and we're going to have each of you guys say, okay, if you saw Three Ninjas Kick Back for the first time, what do you honestly think of this movie now? Like, give us some more critical thoughts about it, like from the adult perspective, the objective perspective. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Ryan this time. So Ryan, tell us, what would you say about Three Ninjas Kick Back if you came to this movie cold?
All right. If I came to this movie fresh as a daisy in the world we live in known as today, I would say this is one of the dumbest, worst, cheesiest pieces of something Dark Side that I've ever seen in my life.
I did not see this coming. Did you see this coming, Chance?
I did not see this coming. No, I did not.
Wow. Okay.
Well,
go on, Ryan. Go on.
Okay. Sorry. To continue on with my eloquent point is that it's so humongously bad that in a way that it's good because it's horrible acting. It's poor production values. I would say this was made on a $20 budget with $1.50 worth of acting, if you get it at a discount. And it's. I mean, look, the girl, the love interest, is cute and all, but when you look at the rest of this cast, it's like, dude, this acting is so borderline bad with a capital B. I mean, the bully, or what do you call these guys? The three knuckleheads that are trying to kidnap. I mean, they are
the baseball baddies.
If there was a picture,
the first movie had basketball baddies. This movie has baseball baddies.
Right. Well, and not just the baseball baddies, but the three numbskulls who were.
The
band. Yeah.
The henchmen.
Yeah. The wannabe heavy metal Korean band, whatever it is so gosh awful. It's so bad when I look at it now. It's so terrible. It's like, I'm surprised this movie got made, but then again, it catered to a specific audience at a specific time. So I get what they were going for. And the outfits, like I said, they remind me, and now that I think about it, does kind of remind me of Power Rangers. But putting that aside, yeah, I'm getting buzzed. Anyway, it's bad. It's terrible. If I were gonna rate this on Rotten Tomatoes, I'd probably give it a 5%.
Oh, Jesus!
If I had maybe a 10, but other than that, it's.
Can you give me maybe some thoughts on have you seen the first one lately? Like, how do you think it holds up to the first Three Ninjas? Like, is that terrible now too, or you think or did they get worse as they went?
I think they got worse in quality as they went along with each installment of this franchise, with 2, 3, and especially 4. The first is the Citizen Kane of this franchise, whereas the second one is like, I don't know.
And with that, Orson Welles has turned over in his grave.
Maybe you could say that if you wish. I don't mind. Because I finally saw Citizen Kane not too long ago, so I can make this now freely. With the knowledge in my noggin. But so this movie's pretty bad. But it's so bad that it's good, because I'll take it.
Orson Welles did commercials for frozen peas. I don't think he'd care that much.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Thanks for the fun fact. But those are
voice in the Transformers.
Those are basically what my thoughts are on this particular movie with Three Ninjas Kickback, respectively. If I were to watch it now, I was like, this is so bad, even though it's somewhat good in a weird way, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, this sounds more like when I've had to talk about my 80s movies on previous episodes. It's disheartening sometimes, isn't it? You go back to what you loved as a kid and you're like,
Dirt Bike Kid all over again.
Oh, it is Dirt Bike Kid all over again. Woo! All right, so let's jump over to RJ. So you're the one that was enthusiastic about this movie. What do you think? I'm thinking your thoughts might be a little different on this one.
Well, yeah, as everybody knows, it's hard for me to take off my nostalgia goggles, especially against these 90 movies, because even as my older self, I'm still considering this is a 90s movie. I'm not going to be as judgmental about it, because there are some bad movies. Every decade has their bad movies.
And as you've brought up before, B movies. Like, these are B movies. So maybe they have maybe look at them a little differently.
Exactly. This is a movie that was only meant to ever be distributed on VHS. And there's a reason for that. Because
it's more like a C+ movie.
I don't really criticize the acting as much as everyone else does. As we saw with the Gordy episode, I apparently have no judgment of acting skills, I guess, because they did fine. The only people I ever judged for acting were the Dirt Bike Kid actors, but that was a whole different story.
And the pirate movie. Don't forget that.
But oh my God, I couldn't believe I had the worst WTF moment when I was like, when these kids who are first of all standing way too close to these people who just broke into their house, and these guys are like, who are you kids? And they're like, we're the Three Ninjas. I was like, oh my dear God, shut up. What was that? You guys are not the Power Rangers. You did not just get to say your name. That's what that
was.
Stupid.
It was a Power Rangers audition.
I didn't pick up on that at all. So that's you guys are the 90s kids.
I was just that was the one thing my older self was like, I can't believe I thought that was cool. That was so stupid and so out of place. And I never realized how long it felt. It was a very short movie and it felt long. I could have sworn they did more in Japan, and they really didn't.
Is that
They
like
really-
halfway? They go like halfway through the movie?
Yeah, like almost halfway through, they finally get to Japan.
30
And
to
I
40
could've
minutes
sworn
in, I
as a
think.
kid, most
Yeah.
of the movie was in Japan, so that
Yeah.
was really weird. Like I said, having to watch these two movies together, I was like,
So many parallels.
is this Karate Kid Part 2 with the old friend who wants you dead because you insulted their honor, and now they're trying to take something very valuable to you, and your main henchman against them is a stupid nephew. Like,
Yep.
I was like,
Yep.
what? Like, but it was and then like I said, but I could say this about all three ninja movies. The need for the oldest brother to have a romantic interest annoys me so much.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty
I
pointless.
don't
It
know
was
why,
pretty
with them
pointless.
being targeted as kids, why they felt that necessary in every movie, but they
Yeah.
did.
I definitely have some thoughts on that I'll get into later.
And Rocky had the love interest every movie. Rocky
Yeah.
loves Emily. But that's the first one. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
jump backwards.
No, it is. And I mean, technically in the second movie, him and Colt are fighting over the girl, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't really
I
count
felt
that.
like
Either way,
weren't they both? Didn't they both like the girl in this one too? I felt like it wasn't
no,
like
no,
it was only the
wasn't
one?
really like that. It was mainly about Rocky.
Hmm.
In the second movie where they're helping the Native Americans, Colt and Rocky both like the girl.
I guess it's
Oh,
just that,
yeah.
I guess it's just that
Yeah.
they all became good friends with her in this one.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It was,
so
they
it
were,
was a little-
they
it was a
were, they
little
were
hard to
teenagers
tell,
at that
like,
point, raging
yeah.
hormones. It never changes.
Yeah, but yeah, they were all they were spending a lot of time with her, so I got a little confused on who was feeling what. And
I don't even think they ever bought her pizza at the end of that movie. The third one. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I apologize.
But it was other than that, I'm trying to think. Like I said, the soundtrack very 90s,
Mhm.
kind of appropriate in places I saw.
pretty much
Uh,
the same. The sound music's very similar to the first movie. Like they pretty much just
Yeah.
continued.
Especially when they're driving around Japan in that limousine.
yeah,
Yeah, you get to explore all these different corners of the neighborhood.
What do you guys think about the villain? By the way, that's actually a Japanese actor of note. I'm gonna pull it up here.
He's a good actor too.
They had Victor Wong, in all the movies, who was a great actor. He's, I know him most from Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah.
He's so great in that as Egg Chen. He was
Yeah,
also
good.
in John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, and just in a million
Oh.
movies. Just a great guy, and I love. I'll get into it later, but obviously he's a standout as the grandfather. But
Yeah, he's good.
the villain in this one, man, I'm having Sab Shimono. Yes, Sab
Yes.
Shimono. He was in a lot of movies. He was in stuff in the 70s, the 80s. Kind of like when you thought about Japanese actors in like TV, American TV and stuff. He was one of the main standout names. Like with the George Takei or somebody like that. So yeah, what do you guys
wanna
think of
talk
him?
about-
Like,
you wanna talk
did you
about that.
think the villain worked, or was that just another
No,
cheesy part?
waste.
They kind of
Like,
wasted him, didn't they?
Very, very one-dimensional villain. Was just
Yeah,
like I
all
said.
Yeah.
It just felt like a ripoff of Karate Kid Part 2. It literally
Yep.
felt like a ripoff of that villain. Speaking of which, that actor, like you said, of note. Talk about another bad 90s movie he was the villain of.
Oh yeah.
He is the main villain. Well, the God, what's the character's name? I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head, but he's the king, the lord, the whatever in Ninja Turtles. Turtles in
Lord
Time.
He's in
Yes.
the third Ninja Turtles. That's right.
Yes,
Lord Nobunaga.
he is
Man.
also the Lord in that one.
You know what? I really tried to block that movie out, so I couldn't
Oh,
remember.
hey!
Well,
I have
I
a
love
soft
that
spot for that
movie.
movie.
I saw
I
it a
hate
lot.
every single one of you for that.
I-
Leave
I-
Ninja Turtles alone.
I watched it multiple times as a teenager, but it always bored me compared to.
Oh,
the
it's
other ones.
terrible now, but I still enjoy it because it's part of the trilogy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think
But yeah, he's a
that
good actor.
kind of gives us our thoughts, what you guys thought looking back at Three Ninjas Kickback. So I'm gonna go
Right.
ahead and talk about my thoughts as a much older guy about the Karate Kid Part 2. To start with, the movie really starts on the wrong foot because it does the Alien 3 thing where the first movie, huge part of that movie is his love with Elizabeth Shue. That's kind of the driving force. And then also his relationship with his mom. And in the second movie, it's like, oh yeah, we broke up, and the mom had to go to Bakersfield for business, so
Yeah,
we're not going
wrote
to
'em
see
off.
those two. They're out, and that's just that's like such a cop out. At the beginning.
You can't disrespect Elizabeth Shue, one of the most beautiful women
I
in the
know.
world.
I mean, come on. And the thing that really bummed me out is that I always remember there was a scene where they brought the mom back and he talked to her on the phone. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I know she's going to pop up at some point. He's going to be on the phone and talking to her. I'm like, what the? I get to the end of the movie. There's no mom. I realized that was the third one.
Yeah, that was the third
he
one.
talks to her on the phone on the third. So that was another bummer.
Oh,
Like, damn it.
I
The
did
whole
not know
movie,
that.
I'm waiting for that scene, and that scene never came because that was the third one. So, and I love Ronnie Heller is the actor. Randy Heller. Randy Heller is the actress played the mom. So genius. If you guys ever watch Mad Men, they brought her back. She played a very memorable role as an older woman on Mad Men. So wonderful actress.
Wow.
That was a bummer. But that's that kind of starts the movie off on a wrong note. But I think it gets over that hurdle pretty fast because really the heart of The Karate Kid is the relationship between Daniel and Miyagi. And I think that really drives this movie. And I think it's nice. They almost kind of did what they did in Back to the Future 3, where they flip it, where it's really more of that was the Doc Brown story. And this is really more the Miyagi story. This is the story of Miyagi's love interest and him kind of rediscovering his youth and getting back in touch with all of these things that he had run away from in his past. So I think that's the drive. And the way that Daniel, you really see even more than in the first one, where I kind of feel like going back with kind of a more critical eye, Daniel's kind of a dicky in the first movie because he just kind of uses Miyagi a little bit. Like, Miyagi does so much for him in that movie and he doesn't always seem like he appreciates it. But in this movie, you really see how he recognizes how much Miyagi has done for him, how Miyagi has changed his life. And I think it is a really formative experience for him as a young man to kind of be where Miyagi came from and to kind of like get some of that history. I mean, it's kind of annoying to me how he's always reading the book and he's like, though this happened historically, he's like doing the whole history thing like a tourist. Like that's annoying. But you still I think Ralph Macchio really sells how much he loves Miyagi and how he cares and how much he's kind of getting connected to him in a whole different way. So that is really what drives the movie. But as Chance hinted, like there's a reason this movie didn't get good reviews like the first one did. I think it was a little unfairly received. Like I think people were, holding it to the first one too much, which critics often do with sequels. Like it's not as good as the first one, so it's not bad. It's not good, which I think is unfair. But I do get it. Like it's really like by the numbers, cliche, predictable movie plot. It is. He's got the guy, his old rival from childhood, and they've got an old beef, and it's going to get settled in a big fight. And then I mentioned the hurricane sequence earlier that comes later in the film, where things kind of flip, and Daniel has it like that is so corny, like 1950s. Like that is such a corny. I think it works. I think that they kind of sell it in the movie, but it's corny. Like there's so much corniness in this movie, but it's an 80s movie. Like that's what 80s movies were. And I think, if you take it on that level, I think it still works. I thought that the actor who plays the main villain really kind of gave a one-note performance. Like this is the villain in this movie. Miyagi, we fight now. We're going to fight. That is that guy's whole performance for that whole movie until the end. And then he flips, and you could actually, I think in the last few scenes, you could kind of tell this guy can actually act a little bit because you're seeing he's more conflicted. I mean, it's still kind of corny, but I feel like at least you see maybe a slightly more dimension to that guy at the end. But I do have to talk about the chosen character. He's, as he said, this is the nephew of Miyagi's rival. This is the guy who is immediately very jealous of Daniel. And there's the girl. I'm sorry. Trying to remember the name of the love interest. It's Tamlyn Tomita. Kamiko. That's what I thought. Kamiko. So Tamlyn Tomita, who it's a cool little factoid. She actually was a young actress from Okinawa. She had grown up in Okinawa, and they kind of launched her into movies, and she had a great career after this. She was in the movie The Joy Luck Club, which is a standout Asian movie from the 90s that had some Oscar nominations, and she's done a lot of TV, and she's still
Law and Order.
She's still very active. So
Big time.
it was kind of cool that this was a launching pad for her. I thought, that character was a little underdeveloped to say the least. Like she's just kind of the cute love interest. They don't do much with her. I like that she was into dance, and when you see her do some of the traditional dance, like, I would have liked to have seen more where maybe she was going to try to go to the States and maybe start a studio. Like, they could have hinted at that more, and it's just like, well, let's just throw that in, And there were some scenes where I felt like she was kind of dubbed, like it was like somebody was dubbing her voice, and like the dialogue was out of sync. So yeah, that stuff was a little cheesy, and they could have done more with her character. But, obviously the Chosen, he kind of thinks he has a claim to this girl. And then she obviously likes Daniel, so he's very jealous. So that's a big driving force in the movie. And I have to talk about the way they wrote that character. He's such a cheesy, corny, just standard villain guy. But something about that actor's performance I really like. He's kind of goofy and weird and quirky. There's something off about the way he plays that character. And probably my favorite standout moment in this movie is where Daniel's walking down the main street in Okinawa, and he looks into the karate dojo, and he's seeing Chosen as training American GIs to do karate, and he's just kicking the shit out of guys. Just willy-nilly, just beating the crap out of them. I love that. That was such a nice little, this guy can just do whatever he wants, and these guys will just take it, because they think they're being taught. And just something, sometimes an actor can take a role to the next level, and I thought that worked. So the movie, I wish that it has a much more serious tone than the first one. The first one had a lot more of that coming of age, teenage stuff, and this one is just a serious tone movie, and I think it kind of sags at certain points, like in the middle. The pacing flags a little bit, and I wish maybe they'd had a little more fun with it. But I still think, as a sequel, as an 80s sequels according movie, I still think it works overall. The ending where they do go to the castle, they're having a big festival. The bad guys come around because Daniel saved a child in the village, and now he's come around, and now he's on Miyagi and Daniel's side. But the nephew is shamed, and now the nephew comes in to get revenge. Like that, I loved all that as a kid. Again, that was the awesome ending. Now it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Why did Miyagi volunteer Daniel to go into this fight where it's a fight to the death and Daniel could die? This isn't the Miyagi we know. Why would he throw Daniel to the wolves like that? And they I think Pat Morita plays it well, because he's basically he's got a plan, and he believes in Daniel and that this thing is going to resolve in a way. But if you just think about it, God, it wasn't even Daniel's fight. It was really more his, because he had never fought his rival, and that challenge had never been met. And now it was kind of it was getting passed on, and Daniel had to answer this honor challenge. But Daniel's just a kid from the U.S. Why does he have to take up this? Why has this become his deal now? It's not, yes, he's, important to Miyagi, but it's not like he's actually his son. So it's weird, but if you just kind of roll with it, I think it's a fun ending. It doesn't live up to the karate tournament in the first film, but it was kind of an interesting kind of way to end it with this one-on-one fight in front of the whole village in this castle. And I thought it was, for the most part, well staged. It's very quick. It goes by very fast, and that is intentional, because if you go back and watch Japanese films like the Kurosawa movies, samurai movies, when they actually got to the fight scenes, the whole thing with these fighters, with these samurai, was precision. We're not here to fight, we're here to end the fight. So there would be 3 moves in some of these old samurai movies, and the fight would be over. It was all build up, and then it was just he takes the guy out. And I liked that they kind of did that, where they fight a little bit, and Daniel's overmatched with the rival, but eventually it gets to the point where it's got to end quickly. And I kind of like the way that they did that. They didn't draw it out. It wasn't a 10-minute sequence. It was, we build up to this moment, and then we get it over, and it's a big catharsis at the end of the film. There's the weird moment where the villain punches the girl in the face and knocks her down.
Right.
I don't think they would do that today, but it almost kind of, I know I'm going to get it. It kind of works, because it just shows you the stakes and how vicious this guy really is. And it really, in that moment, you believe this guy's actually going to kill Daniel. When he'll do that to this girl, just wantonly punch her, ooh, Daniel's really in trouble now, man. So it's cringy, but it kind of works. And then there is another cringe factor to the movie where I don't think it portrays the Japanese culture in the best light. I think a lot of it's dated. I think if we were to bring somebody like Paul Oyama on, who's Japanese, I think he would have a lot to say about this movie. There's the weird moment where Daniel's all, oh, in World War II, a bunch of Americans died here. And Miyagi's like, yeah, a lot more Japanese people died here. It just kind of shows you the American mentality of they didn't really take this stuff into the proper light. So, you know, there's some dated stuff in terms of the racial issues. So, okay, that basically is it. Like, I still like this movie. I still think it's worked. It's corny, it's dated, but on a certain level, I think it still holds up for me in a certain way. But yeah, you know, it's not the first movie. So that does it for our basically our wrap up. So we're going to jump over to the other side again. And now we're getting into the section I call Mr. Nice Guy. So this is where we have to talk about the other guy's movie. We have to talk about the movie the other guy picked, and we can only say nice things. So I'm really in a lot of suspense here because Ryan and I have been talking about this for a while, and Ryan did tell me he had never seen The Karate Kid 2. So I have to know, Ryan, you give me some of your thoughts. We're not getting into the negatives yet, but give me some of your thoughts of watching Karate Kid for the first time and what you thought maybe were the positives.
All right, I'll focus on the ray of sunshine rather than the dark, stormy clouds over this movie for now. Okay, watching this movie for the first time, I saw the original Karate Kid just a few years ago, so I was coming into this much, I'm very late to the party, folks.
Ooh, nice reference.
The second one, the Karate Kid Part 2, respectively, I gotta say, to me, there are familiar elements from the first one that, of course, appear in this film, respectively, but it was also very different. I got a completely different vibe from this entire movie as I was watching it throughout the course of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
I was like, this is about traveling. This is about going back to your roots and, you know, settling your family's affairs and saying goodbye and learning the culture and learning about this small little village that's teetering on the edge of, you know, obscurity or at the end of its rope, so to speak, because the developers are like, we want to get rid of this land, you know. So it's, you know what I mean. But it's there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of history, and I respect that, and I really liked, even though Daniel was doing the touristy thing where he was cracking open that book on the flight. When he
gets, so cheesy.
He gets to what is it, Okinawa, and he's like, wow, there's this over here, and then a lot of people died over here, and then there's this castle that was used for ancient ritual ceremonies over here on the Bayside, whatever it's called. And then
exposition device.
Thank you. Yes, and then he has this love interest with what was her name?
It's Kamiko.
Kamiko. Thank you. Yes. With Kamiko, and as soon as they drop the words Tamlin to meet, I'm like, hey, I saw you on Law and Order like a million times, and you do a good job, even though it's a small bit role. But still, hey, you're eating your breakfast, you get a paycheck, it's great, right? Great. But no, this is it was different, but at the same time there was familiarity. I actually liked some parts of this film. I really did. Obviously, there's some parts we can get into later, but there are some parts for this that really worked. And it was just a different vibe. It was more of a softer, you know, a bit of a quieter film, if that makes any sense. It's like, we're just here to settle these affairs. We're here to explore the territory and get to know each other a little bit and pay our respects to the people around us who have been here before. It's like a generational type thing. So I got a lot more out of this movie than I thought I was going to get. And that's always a good thing. I like being surprised. I like being... You know, what is it like? It's like the rug being pulled from out under you. It's like, oh, this is okay. You're going to the left when I thought you were going to go right. Okay, I can work with this, son. So I liked it, and I feel the character of Daniel really grew in this movie too. Much different from the first one to the second one. Yeah, so those are some of my thoughts.
He almost becomes a man, you could say.
In a way,
not just a good kid anymore.
Doing a little bit of dance numbers in there. Yeah, that was cute
and
too.
I think you could say, hey, they actually tried, which you cannot say for a lot of 80 sequels. Certainly none of the Jaws sequels. All right, so let's jump over to RJ. Let's get some of your thoughts on Karate Kid 2.
I enjoyed the hell out of this movie.
Oh wow! This is the first time he actually liked one of my movies. I can't believe it.
Well, because it's Karate Kid. Don't get ahead of yourself.
All right.
But no, I mean, I enjoyed Karate Kid. I mean, being a 90s kid, by the time I was born, I could watch all three together. I didn't have to wait for the other ones to come out or even know if one was going to get one. And it's just a fun little sequel to it because, it's like, where do we go after here? Hey, let's go to Japan. Like I said, the original introduction of an old rival and his nephew basically being the equivalent to your villain. I always thought that kind of worked. It never bothered me. I never thought it was cheesy or anything. I thought it was a nice little play on it. Another fun thing, because, you're talking about all these old actors that are in it. I wrote down his name real quick. Let me say it. Joey Miyashima. Joey
Yes.
Miyashima, who is Chosen. How do you say his name? The nephew?
Well, the nephew is the nephew is actually Yuji Akamoto.
No. But what's the nephew's name again?
Chosen.
Okay, Chosen. His main guy, the main guy always going around with him, the one who helps him pick him at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, that
actor. That actor. I was like, wait a minute, I know you, and he's from so many TV movies, lower rate movies that like I love, and I love his bits in them. For kids from the 2000s, he's in like he's like a small character in some of the best Disney Channel movies.
Oh, okay,
in Double
awesome.
Teams, he's the coach. In High School Musical, he's the principal.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
He has a bit in Right on Track. He has a bit in Gunther and the Paper Brigade. Like he's one of those actors to me of like you never have a leading role, but I know you, and I love every role you're in. And for me, I never noticed it. It took me watching it again this time to remember. Oh yeah, that guy's in this movie, super young. And so it's always a blast to see that in these kind of movies.
Did you guys catch the BD Wong cameo? BD Wong from Jurassic Park?
No, where was he?
I think he was in the section where they went to the town with the military and everything. I think he was one of the people there. And then the black soldier in the barn was Clarence Gilliard, who is in Walker, Texas Ranger. So another little 90s connection there. So
the one who eggs him on, right?
Yeah.
The one who's like,
but BD Wong, it's at a certain point, I think during that part of the movie, he pops up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. Interesting.
Yep.
Fun facts, people. Facts.
Oh, yeah. We find so many connections in these movies. It's crazy.
Yeah,
that's true.
But,
true. Can't argue that.
But yeah, other than that, like I enjoy the hell out of Karate Kid Part 2. It's honestly for me, it's on par with 1. I think it's a very good sequel to it. I think it's a very acceptable sequel.
And you think it works like Ryan said, that they went a different direction, a different tone, kind of focus more on Miyagi? Do you think that kind of helps it hold up to the first one in a certain way?
I think it does. I think, to learn more about Miyagi was what made it a more interesting story. Mm-hmm. Like we said, this whole thing with the nephew, it gave it more stakes than just being in high school. Mm-hmm. Like, just being in high school with your bullies. It's like, now you need to meet some real world bullies because they are no joke. Like,
oh, yeah.
This guy, like I said, this guy was overly serious. I agree with you maybe a little bit at the end there, but, I kind of feel like he put them in a situation where Daniel didn't have a choice but to fight because that dude had a knife to the girl's throat and didn't really have a choice but to go
true. You're right. He did do that much. I felt like
that's why even Miyagi said, like, no, this is
maybe
could have tried to fight.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he could have tried to get him out of there a little more. Instead, he's just like, go get him. I don't know, but I see what you mean. At least
high school bullies are one thing, but people overseas are completely different.
When life is on the line, you fight. That was always Miyagi's thing. I even remember he kind of touched on it a little bit in 3, and I believe even in the new Karate Kid he touches on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in the new Karate Kid. Yes.
Don't you mean the next Karate Kid?
The next Karate Kid. I'm sorry.
Woohoo! I have a soft spot for that one.
Yeah.
I do.
All right.
Seriously.
I can't. I don't remember that movie. All right.
It's okay.
All right. So let's wrap that section up now. Oh no, it's not. It's my turn. I have to talk about Three Ninjas. Okay, so me and Three Ninjas. When the Three Ninjas movies came out, I think I was 13 or 14 when the first one came out. I avoided those movies like the plague. I saw those trailers and they looked so bad. I think it was actually this one. There was the trailer where you see Tum Tum with a piece of chocolate in his mouth going, "Let's go get them." And I thought it was the stupidest looking thing I ever saw. And for whatever, my brother is a 90s kid, so I did watch a lot of 90s kids movies with him. But for whatever reason, he never gravitated to those. So I never saw them. So I knew, starting Nostalgia Goggles, I was going to have 3 things in my life: Gordy, Three Ninjas, and Power Rangers. I knew I have those 3 things that I avoided were going to come up for me. So here it is. Finally, I actually, I didn't want to just jump to this movie. I wanted to watch Three Ninjas. I wanted to watch the first one first so I could have a bit of context. So a few weeks ago, sat down, watched the first Three Ninjas, and just one little anecdote I got to tell you. My stepson Connor, who's 11, came into the room while I was watching it. He and his brother had seen this movie at school, and he's like, "Oh, that's Three Ninjas. That movie's terrible. That's so bad." And then he sat down and just watched it with me for 40 minutes, just glued to it. So even though he's like, "It's terrible," he couldn't stop watching it.
You did some Mystery Science Theater 3000 on this movie.
And then they certainly, at a certain point, Nathan, the younger one, came in. "What are you guys doing?" "We're watching Three Ninjas." "Oh, that's bad. I'll watch." And then he watched the rest of it with us. So we're like zombies just watching this movie. And that's kind of me and Three Ninjas. Like, yeah, the first one was cheesy. It was actually directed by John Turteltaub, who went on to be a big director later on. He did National Treasure. The Kid with Bruce Willis. Yeah, so yeah, but it was that's a cheesy movie, but I gotta say I enjoyed it. Like, you know, for what it was, I thought Victor Wong was terrific in that movie. The villain was a terrible actor, but he kind of had the Steven Seagal hair. He had big eyes, and he overacted the entire movie, and I kind of loved it. Like, he was so much fun.
I want those kids.
I actually had to stop the movie. I was laughing so hard when he, at a certain point, stops and goes, "God, I love being the bad guy."
Yes, it's a great line. It's a cheesy, great line, though. You got it.
Yeah, the whole like finale on like the boat freighter when they're taking out all the guys, the ship. Like, I like that movie is bad, but I enjoyed it.
So good.
I thought that the three henchmen in that movie were really fun. Like,
the pizza delivery guys?
Yeah, those guys. They were terrible, but they were fun. So I watched this one. Three Ninjas Kick Back, and you know, I mean, hey, it's a very, like, it's right in line with the first one. It took me out a little that they recast them. I actually didn't like the new kids as much. They actually Rocky was the one they kept, right, RJ?
No,
Colt was the only one.
Okay, Colt was my least favorite of the three, and of course he's the only one they didn't recast.
How dare you?
How
dare you, sir?
I know, I didn't like him.
Colt's a big old douche.
Yeah, I really liked.
And he's always looking for a fight too. He's like the Raphael of the whole group.
He has very little personality. He was actually a little better in this one. In the first one, he had very little personality. But but Rocky I really liked in the first one. In this one, I didn't really like Rocky as much. Tum Tum was a pretty on par. Like, you know, he's still the same character. Yeah, I like him. I actually like Tum Tum. It's weird because that was the main reason I didn't want to watch the movies, was because the Tum Tum thing looked so stupid. But now it's kind of like my favorite part because he's a pretty funny character.
What does he say? Let's murderlize them?
Let's murderlize them. So
whatever that means.
I mean, Ryan, you were a kid. I'm not getting into the negatives, but yeah, you know, for what it is, like everything RJ said, it's a cheesy 90s, low budget, straight to video Ninja Kids movie. They go to Japan, and it gives you all of that. And you think it's exactly what I said. You think this is bad, and then you sit down and you get sucked into it and you watch it. And then you watch the other one, and then you watch the next one. And the next thing you know, you've spent hours watching Three Ninjas. And I think that's the best thing I can say. These are watchable, fun, cheesy 90s movies. And thank you, RJ. I'm kind of glad I caught up with them. You know, I probably would have had a bad attitude and hated them as a teenager, but I'm a little older, and I can enjoy the campiness of the 90s in a way that maybe I couldn't at the time as a self-serious teenager. So I did enjoy watching them, and so, there you go. And so now we're going to get into what I call the open floor. So now we're going to open up, and now we're going to get to unload and say what we really think of the other guy's movie, what we really think of the decade, maybe what are the worst parts of the movie, and how maybe it speaks to some of the worst parts of their decade. So again, I'm going to go ahead and start with you guys. RJ, you said you like Karate Kid too, but why don't you just kind of tell me, watching it again, were there things that you didn't like that maybe didn't age too well, things that bugged you about the movie, and maybe some 80s stuff that might have been annoying in the Karate Kid 2?
I am the man who
don't you dare.
That was the only thing.
Don't you dare.
The only thing that pissed me off that entire movie.
Oh my God.
You had to throw in the 80s hit. You just had to throw it in there. It was
Oscar
fine.
Nomination.
This movie was
that
fine.
Song
and then you
the
threw
best.
that crap. You
so
threw
best.
that crap.
The greatest. All right, go ahead.
That's it. That's really it.
That's the only thing you don't like is Peter Cetera.
Like, no, just that, like every 80s movie, like this movie was so good about not putting into those 80 trends.
Yeah, it really did.
And then the 80s pop hit had to be thrown in.
The
Granted.
80s pop hit. It's like the cheese-tastic of all.
Like, granted, it was at an appropriate time,
Mhm.
but still, I was like, no. You couldn't just like do like the other movie and just play some romantic music in the background. No, you had to throw in an entire song.
This was the year of Top Gun, my friend. There was no way they weren't going there.
Oh God, that's right.
Yes, it was. He was everywhere.
And here's my piss off moment for the day of nostalgia goggles. Never seen
Uh-oh.
Top Gun.
Here's my Chance. Chance is gonna hate me forever. I hate
What?
Top Gun.
What?
I hate Top Gun. We'll get there
Well,
at a certain point.
Chance already
yeah.
knows how I feel about Tom Cruise.
Sometimes on this show, we're gonna talk about something called anti-nostalgia too on this show, where when you're a kid, they force movies on you and you don't like them, and you kind of had a bad attitude about them for the rest of your life. And the two
Like
movies
Tom
that were
Cruise?
the two
Fuck
movies.
that guy.
The two movies that were forced on me as a kid that I was forced to watch over and over were Top Gun and Dirty Dancing, and I hated them. And I've
Oh,
come
that's
around.
fair.
I've
That's
come
fair,
around.
though.
I've come around on Dirty Dancing. I actually like that movie now, but I
Yeah.
haven't come around on Top Gun yet. I'm
But
sorry.
yeah, Dirty Dancing.
I'm
really
out
quick.
at the volleyball scene, but okay, that's a digression.
Oh.
That's a digression.
That's
But
an
anyway,
episode for a later date.
Yeah. Anything else
I
on
don't really
Karate Kid
have-
2?
It's Karate Kid 2. I have nothing bad to say. I couldn't
Alright.
find anything in watching it that made me really go like,
You didn't think like the hurricane thing was a little contrived? Like they just threw that in there to try to give some drama at the end?
I mean, maybe, but it still fit. It wasn't just
Yeah.
like it put in a situation where like you knew the villain was going to change somehow. There was going to be an event that made him change. They made it the hurricane, so it was all right. Like I was just like, it's fine. Like how else were you going to do it when you live on an island? Like what other like
Yeah, it is. It is.
was going to happen?
I mean, it is pretty suspenseful when he has to go up there and save that girl. Like I think that moment works. You know. So what do you
that
do?
was a little too convenient though. I'm like that should be an extremely dangerous situation.
It's
that,
all
like,
too convenient, dude. The whole thing's convenient.
like don't get me wrong, like that little girl should be saved, but not by a teenager. There had to be an able-bodied adult man in that village that probably could have gone. Also to help Daniel instead of the old men who were like, we got to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I really have nothing bad to say about it. I like this movie.
So
I
do you-
enjoyed this movie.
Do you think it was unfairly compared to the first one? Like it was unfairly given bad reviews and all that kind of stuff, and it's not as good as the first? You think that
Yeah,
it's
think
actually
it was,
aged
'cause,
well?
Like, because for me, it's like I hate when people do that. Like
Mhm.
when people complain that it's like some people complain it's too similar to the first one. Some people complain it's too different from the first
Yeah.
one. You're gonna get one or the other. Like you need to understand that that's what's gonna happen with the sequel because there are those people that want the same movie again with a slightly different story, and there are those people who want something completely different. And for me, this movie found that balance. You had still the learning of the new technique, the understanding the true meaning of martial arts, but then you had the new side of the story that focused more on Miyagi.
Mhm.
And I think it worked. I think they found that right balance to make a good sequel.
And we got the rehash of the first movie. That's the third one. The third one rehashes the first one. So
Oh, don't even get me started about the third one.
So I think that also maybe helps you appreciate this one a little more.
It probably did, yes. Like it makes it easy to forget the third one because the second one is good.
All right. Well, this is he likes one of my movies. I don't know what to do with myself. I feel like I have to pick the worst movie I can for next week now to try to restore balance in the universe. So, Ryan, you hinted that you did have some gripes with this movie. What do you have to say? And with your critical eye seeing it for the first time, what doesn't hold up about the Karate Kid 2?
Yeah, for Karate Kid Part 2, I would say I'm not hating on these certain elements of the movie. I just didn't think they were, whether they be necessary or all that good. The cheesy theme, the lovey-dovey song, I mean,
come on, man.
I would take Berlin's Take My Breath Away from Top Gun.
Who will
Who
fight
will fight
for your
your
right?
right?
Yes.
You're
not
not
the
showing
It is a good song. Don't get me
You
wrong.
don't
It's a
get it.
great
You
song.
don't get it, man. You're not from the 80s. You can't understand.
I'll take Berlin's Take My Breath Away over the other song any day of the week and twice on Sunday, but that's neither here nor there.
They're both great.
Whatever, Russ. Whatever. But anyway, sorry, that's another movie entirely. The theme song was a little off-putting, and the villain of this movie, the main one, being so one note. We got to fight now, like now. No, we need to do it now. There was a feud that we must send it now. Sorry, I'm doing.
Not to mention, also getting ready
I know.
to fight boys.
It's like a cheesy voice of Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe or something. I don't know. It's bad.
Serpentor. It's Serpentor. Sorry, G.I. Joe.
Thank you. Yes.
80s kid.
Serpentor. Thank you. Yes, I was looking for the direct name or quote. But anyway, thanks Google. Yeah, those are the two things that bothered me the most. And then the love interest didn't really go anywhere. It just kind of hovered. And then the very end, she almost gets whacked by the other dude. He's like,
I know.
And I gotta say this though, the very end of the movie, you have to make a choice, right? He makes a choice: live or die, man. Die. No, wrong answer. Picks out his nose.
Call back to the beginning of the movie,
and then throws him on the ground, and it's like, I won, fool. Get out of here. It's like, really, dude? Really? Live or die, man. Die.
Live or die. Yeah, I do not understand the motivation of that character.
I don't get that. It's like, why would a 16-year-old want to kill someone that they don't want to kill? It's like, I'm just defending myself, bro. Don't come at me, bro.
Why does he what drives the chosen character? Like, why is he so willing to die at the end?
It's
why
so
does he
weird,
have,
and
it's
a little weird thing to end on. Like, are you gonna live or die? And then Miyagi looks at him at the very end. He's like, yeah, you did the right thing. Daniel's
did it, buddy.
Like, whatever, dude. I will say this though: the theme song at the end of the first installment, "You're the best around." Like that song
keep you down.
That song is 1,000 times better than the lovey-dovey song we get in Karate Kid Part 2.
Oh, you're wrong.
But that's just my 2 cents of the matter. Those are my negatives about the Karate Kid 2. I will say this though: the Karate Kid Part 2 was better than I thought it was going to be. So between the two. This one is The Godfather compared to Three Ninjas Kickback, whereas
we'll get there.
Three Ninjas Kickback is like the RoboCop 2 of whatever.
All right, so now it's
that's just me.
Now, well, you set me up. Now I'm going to talk about Three Ninjas Kickback now. So, look, there was a overall, this, like I said, it's a cheesy movie. It's your standard 90s kids movie made for video. And I thought it worked. It was more the little things in this movie. There's a lot of little things like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're ninjas. Why did they suck at baseball at the beginning? Like, they've got ninja skills. Wouldn't they be good baseball players? Am I wrong to correlate those two things?
I didn't think about that until now. That's a good point, because you would think they would have a good sense of balance and ingenuity, but unfortunately they don't.
Explain it to me, RJ. I'm confused, man.
Let the Red Ranger explain.
If everyone actually pays attention, at the beginning of every movie, every time he's teaching them a lesson, he's trying them to teach a new, different thing about ninja discipline.
Okay.
And their whole thing is
getting distracted, right?
Exactly. And that's why they suck.
Okay.
Because
they get distracted by food and Lisa DiMarino.
Lisa DiMarino.
Ryan, I'm talking. This is what he's trying to teach them. Rocky's distracted by the girl. Tum Tum's distracted by the food. And Colt is distracted by the bullies. That's what he's trying to teach them, to stay focused and stay united. But no, they're all in their own little world and can't focus on the game, and that's why they suck. Y'all need context clues. Come on, guys. It's not that hard.
All right. I guess. I just feel like they're ninjas. They can take out adult men. I think it's still, even though, yes, the movie goes out of its way to tell us that they got distracted, it still seems weird that they can't hit a ball or just do these basic things that kids can do. Like, they're ninjas. Like, I don't know. It still just was weird for me. Like, it seemed really contrived and
I mean if Lisa DiMarino walks down the street, I get distracted too, RJ.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Then you don't deserve to play baseball.
Oh, come on.
And I felt like the whole baseball thing, like, I didn't feel the movie was paced very, like, they said there's a big long baseball scene and then baseball isn't really mentioned until the very end, and then they bring it back and it's like it felt a little disjointed to me there. Like, I felt like it could have been paced a little better. But hey, it's not. Why am I looking for sense in this movie?
It's
I
an
don't know.
85-minute movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like that scene was so long, and then we get away from it, and we don't talk about it, and then we bring it back in a corny way at the end. Like, I felt like in the first movie, that was an ongoing thing through the middle of the movie where there was these bully kids, and they play basketball against them, and, show the bullies up. Like, I felt that was, like, the whole first movie was just paced a little better, and things were, like, it was a little less disjointed. Like, this one, it felt a little rushed, and things were just thrown
Can I
together.
mention another negative about Three Ninjas real quick?
That's what we're doing right now. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. The bathroom jokes, the fart jokes in that movie, horrible and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Well,
Completely
that was very
terrible.
nice, so I can
But,
admit that. 90s,
but
90s kids movies just love to make fart jokes.
yeah, and then I got to piggyback with Ryan. Like, the henchmen in this, they were terrible.
Yeah,
God,
they
they
were
were like,
garbage.
and it was disappointing.
They were
'cause
garbage.
I liked them in the first movie. The guys in the first movie were actually funny, but these guys were almost as bad as the henchmen in Gordy. But nothing.
Even the basketball bullies were better than this.
Nothing's as bad as the henchmen in Gordy. But this
Hey.
one got close, and that depressed me.
Granted, yes, but to make it believable that kids could actually outsmart adults, they have to be that stupid.
Well, I don't know that.
See,
I
that to
agree
me,
with
that to me,
I don't
that to
agree
me
with
is a
that
cop
because
out.
they can take out adult fighters. They can take out other ninjas. Why can't they outstart a decently intelligent adult? I don't feel like that's too much
Like
to
I
ask.
said,
And
they
I
were
feel like
there
it's
for
just
the
pandering, Home Alone cash-in moments.
I think it's a cop
They're there
out.
for the slapstick. That's why they're there. Because you can believe those guys falling for slipping on the AAs
No,
and
they were
two
too.
guys to the door and all that crap.
They were just painful to watch, and
Yeah.
it wasn't.
They were,
It
though,
didn't.
don't get me wrong,
It didn't
But they
play
had to
well.
be stupid. They had to be stupid.
And they're
Without
this
nostalgia
didn't play well.
goggles, it's like getting a root canal. It's painful.
Yeah, it's bad. It's real bad. And let me tell you the moment in the movie that really pissed me off.
Mhm.
They go to the hospital to visit their uncle, their grandfather,
yeah.
and the idiots sneak in and like steal something in the room and then sneak back out. The grandfather and all three ninjas didn't detect that those guys came into the room while they were talking. They're fucking
No, yeah, they're
ninjas.
terrible ninjas.
They're supposed
think-
to have. That's your whole thing, is be mindful of your surroundings.
I
Like,
think
what the
he was
hell is
high
that?
on morphine in that scene. I think he was high
Yeah,
as a
they're
kite on.
terrible ninjas.
At least the kids. That was real bad. And it's not like those guys are good at sneaking. They're idiots. They can't sneak into a room. But yeah, and then the girl, like, you said the tournament. They set up this.
Mhm.
I was really excited for this big tournament.
Yeah,
they
it was great.
they fight the girl. There's a couple of moments, and then it goes away. And it's like, why didn't they make that more of the movie? Like, if they'd I'm sorry, RJ, I almost could have lost all the baseball stuff and replaced all those scenes with more tournament scenes. I think that
I
would
would
have
have
made
been
the
fine with that.
I
didn't
would've
care
made the
about
movie
baseball
more fun.
stuff.
That
I
would have
would've
made the
been fine
movie
with
more.
that.
Maybe they went to a karate tournament in the U.S. and then
Yeah.
embarrassed themselves there, and then they
Mhm.
have to redeem themselves at the karate tournament in Japan. Like that.
Even
could
the
have been
weapons
something more.
demonstrations were cool,
Yeah, and
respectively.
I gotta say, I liked what's the girl's name? I'm sorry, the character.
Miho or Mika? What?
Mio.
Mio. Wasn't it Mio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was
Mio,
for me
yeah, Mio.
easily the best part of the movie. Like I thought she was. I actually thought this is cool. Like some girl power in this movie, and she.
Do we
she
know
came-
whatever happened to her after this movie? Did she do anything afterwards? I feel
No,
like she
they
just
never-
disappeared.
No, yeah.
I don't know about. I don't think so. But yeah, she kicks all their asses. She
Yeah.
she gets
She
the trophy.
didn't
yeah.
move to America. She just came to play. She's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how much
so
that
was,
might cost.
That was the one thing I liked in this movie that the first movie didn't have, was that kind of female empowerment thing.
It was cool.
I thought the relationships of the boys to her were never very well defined. Like, he was kind of had a crush on her, but then it never really went anywhere with it. So that I felt like that
They
could have been
rushed the
tight.
hell out of it. All
Yeah,
of
they
a sudden, they're about to kiss in her room, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it
I think
didn't
in the-
set that up.
I think in the first one, Emily just steps on the guy's toe, knocks him into the door, and he gets knocked out by Tum Tum with a tennis racket. It's like, dude, Emily is not. No. Just no. She may have been
Yeah.
cute for the movie, but as far as character goes, Miho in the second
Way-
one was far superior
Way
to
better
Emily.
than Emily. You're correct.
Even though the
So that was-
hashtag has been
that
going
was-
around since
I
the
would say
90s,
that
Rocky
was-
loves Emily.
That was the only part of the movie that I think was better than the first one, honestly. And the whole tunnel sequence at the end, it was your traditional, in 90s act like adventure movie finale. It kind of worked. It was
Oh,
it
like the
was all right.
boulder coming down in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
That was stupid. Yeah, but just they got to go underground, get the child. Like, okay, I went with that, whatever. But yeah, look, It's weird. I think I like the movie more than you did, Ryan, which is weird. Maybe it's because I didn't see it as a
Nostalgia
kid.
goggles, I love it, but if you look at it now, it's garbage.
I don't know. Maybe because I came to it cold, I didn't have any like
That's
fond
fine.
memory. I didn't have any fond memories of it, so I just it's a cheesy, crappy '90s movie that's kind of fun. You know,
That's
like I said,
okay.
you sit with the kids, and they're like, "This is bad," but it's still watchable. It's still
Mhm.
fun to watch. So there were little things that bugged me throughout the movie, but I actually thought it was a pretty decent follow up to the first one. It was
Yeah.
very much in line with the first one. I watched a few scenes of Knuckle Up, and it seemed to me like that movie was worse. You could correct me, RJ, but it seemed
Yeah, it
like this
gets
was
worse.
it was a little more fun than Knuckle Up was from what I
Aside
saw.
from the scene in the pizza parlor, because I love
Yeah.
pizza and anything involving pizza, I think is funny or just fun because pizza is awesome. By the way, hashtag that.
Right?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
third movie
yeah,
is so forgettable.
I mean, if I had to give it a Rotten Tomatoes score, maybe I'd give it a 15 or a 20. I might go I might be a little more nice to it than you, but
That's
you know,
okay.
for watchability though, it's
10% is
the
fine.
thing about these. There's a difference between the bad 80s movies and the bad 90s movies because the bad 80s movies are slow as shit. Like they're just
Oh.
really badly paced. And the 90s movies have a quick pace to them. So even if they're terrible, got bad music and terrible sidekicks and bad acting, you can still kind of absorb them because they move along and they're not too long. So that's
can dig
how
that.
that's how I felt about Three Ninjas. And I'm not looking forward to watching the Hulk Hogan one, but you know, if I have to, I don't
Ooh.
think it'll be the worst thing in the world based on
Watch the
watching these first
trailer
two.
if you want. You'll get the whole movie in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Dave
All right.
Dragon, go,
Okay.
Dave Dragon.
So we're going to go into our final summations where we're going to come to a verdict today on these two movies and these two decades. For real quick, I'll go ahead and touch base with Chance, who's been quiet for a while. Any thoughts after everything you've just heard and any other fact things or anything before we end this?
Oh God, I forget how nonsensical Three Ninjas is until I hear you guys talk about it. Man, that movie is lame. It's really bad. And I think giving Karate Kid 2 a little too much credit, RJ. I don't think it's on par with the first. I think it's the best one we had. Karate Kid, anything we've had since the first one. But still not good. But like the only thing I really remember about that movie is the joke in the beginning at the end with the nose pinching. That's about it.
It's not a very memorable movie. I don't think it's. I think it's a good follow up in a way, but yeah, it's less memorable.
I contend on that point. And Top Gun is awesome, and you're all morons. So
sorry, man.
And Tom Cruise is amazing.
Sorry,
yeah. Top Gun is a classic.
I got scarred on
Thank
Top
you,
Gun,
Ryan.
and I don't like it to this day. I'm sorry, buddies.
I you know what? I wanted to show where I just defend Tom Cruise against anybody who wants to challenge me.
Chance, I'm on your team. Let's do it.
There are a lot of 80s Tom Cruise movies I love. Just Tom Cruise. Top Gun is not one of them. I'm sorry.
Top Gun it's so good.
All right. Okay, guys. So now we're going to get to the final wrap up here. And basically, this is we're each going to have our final verdict where we're going to say which one of these movies better represents their decade. Which one is the movie that, if you're going to recommend one of them and say, here's a time capsule from a certain time. This is a good movie to watch, an enjoyable movie that's going to tell you something about that time period. Which one of these should win today, and which one is going to get crowned the Nostalgia Goggles movie of today? So I'm going to go ahead and start with our guest, defer to our guest, Ryan. So being objective about it, taking Child Ryan out of it, just, looking at this straight on, which of these two movies do you think really wins here today and tells us something more about their time period?
Well, this is going to shock all my friends and all my 90s buddies out there, but I'm going to have to say The Karate Kid Part 2 wins the Oscar for best movie between these two candidates, if you will, because it has, to me anyway, it has better writing, better acting, it has a better journey of going overseas, respecting the history and the culture and these people as a culture, and settling your differences, settling old grudges, and just coming to terms with your past, settling your family's affairs, and losing a loved one. I think all of us can relate to that on some level, respectively. So that comes into play. And it has, to me anyway, has better writing, better acting. It has a really good story, even though there's some bits and pieces you could have taken out or some subplots that could have been thrown out of the basket here and there. So Respectively, I'm going to have to give the Oscar to the Karate Kid Part 2, and I would recommend to the audience members who are watching this to check out that film first before you dive into the Three Ninjas gene pool. Because unless you grew up like moi and Red Ranger RJ over here in the 90s, which is the best decade of all, you're not really going to enjoy the Three Ninjas all that much, but you may enjoy the Karate Kid Part 2 just a bit more. So those are my thoughts. Back to you in the studio.
Well, just real quick, I like that. He's going all journalist on us. The TV reporter. But just real quick, like you obviously your allegiance is to the 90s. The 90s is your childhood and you love it. But you do think this movie does say something about the 80s and what kids watched then, what 80s movies like? Is there something good this says about that time period that makes that the winner here today?
I would say yes, to a certain degree. Yes, it does say something about the decade that this film was set in and presented in, which is the 80s, which is the second greatest decade of all time. It is, I have to admit. So I would say it does. It is a bit of a time capsule. It is a bit of a, it tells you what the mood and the vibe and this cheesy soundtrack was, whether it worked or didn't work. I will leave that up to you, the viewer at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good time capsule. It really, really is, especially when, it was after some, stuff that was going on in America and some of the stuff that was going on overseas, whether it be a financial crisis or a gasoline crisis. This was set after the events of the USA beating Russia and America on ice. So you had all that kind of, patriotic, let's go for the gold and win it for the Gipper kind of story.
I believe this was the same year that the Challenger, the space station, exploded, and that was one of the most. That was a tragedy. That was one of the most traumatic moments for every '80s kid. So
it's a
the
tragedy,
fact that we had these movies to kind of escape to was a good thing.
I would say this film is a good escapism. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say like it doesn't do it well, but at least it was trying to be bringing the cultures together and opening up so that we could kind of connect with other cultures and other places of the world. At least it was kind of like that was a theme in the 80s. So it kind of gives you that.
I would say it swung for the fences and did its best with what it had at the time.
Yeah. Maybe it cared a little more about that than the Three Ninjas did.
Maybe.
All right.
And that's fine. I'll take it.
All right. RJ. All right, man. You've never gone against the 90s before, and I'm very curious to see what are you saying here today? What's your verdict? Are you going to be dyed in the wool 90s guy as you always are, or are we going to see something different today?
Well, because I mean, we're talking about who better represents.
What better represents it, but also is better and it gives you the better experience and maybe the better message. Like it's overall like what should really win. Like so, yeah. Be honest, man.
That's not what you said at first, but that's not what you said.
Part of it is representing a decade, and part of it is representing the decade in a good way and being a good representation. So, all right, let's get it. Is it what's the verdict, RJ? I know you're a little torn.
No, I mean. Honestly, when it comes down to it, Three Ninja wins representing of the decade. It's beyond 90s.
It really is. You can't deny that.
Yeah, you can't. However, if I want to recommend a movie, I'm going to recommend Karate Kid Part 2 because, like I said, for me, especially like you said with the 80s, not a lot of great sequels out there. But for me, when I tell people that, like, if you think like a lot of really popular movies don't have good sequels, besides Back to the Future, I always recommend to people Karate Kid, at least the first one. Karate Kid Part 2, like I said, for me, because movies are objective, is an on-par sequel. I think it's a nice follow-up story to it, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I would sit down and enjoy, well, probably not the trilogy, but I would sit down and enjoy the first two Karate Kids almost any day of the week. So, yeah, Karate Kid 2, easily.
Wow, you got to say it. You have to say the words. The 80s win today. Say them, RJ.
No, yeah, the 80s win today. For
yes!
Sure.
It took 4 episodes around. The 80s are never going to let you down. It finally happened, guys. The 80s have won, so I mean, I obviously I agree. I still think the Karate Kid 2 is a good sequel. It's a little dated, a little forgettable, but I think it's still it continues the story. It tells us more about the characters. There are a lot of things to like in this movie, but again, maybe a little shocking. I'm glad you had me watch these Three Ninjas movies, and I don't know what it says about me, but Three Ninjas, Surf Ninjas, I'm enjoying these movies. Like these cheesy martial arts kids movies, I'm liking them. They're they're kind of cool. As long as there isn't country music and bad non-actors and pigs, then so far I've been pretty happy with what you brought to the table, RJ. So thank you for bringing me into the Three Ninjas world. But yeah, I mean, Karate Kid, it wins. It's an actual movie. It's a real production. They actually tried. Great director John Avildsen, who did Rocky and the Karate Kid. You talked about the cheesy song, but the actual score by Bill Conti is wonderful.
Oh, the score was really
good. And he
good.
actually decided to do this score instead of Rocky IV. He made I'm going to do this score instead, and stepped out of Rocky IV. So I think you really
big mistake.
No,
I forgot to bring this up earlier. The score was really good.
I really think it's one of Bill Conti's best, and he had done the right stuff before this, so he had really come into his own as a composer. So this
movie today swept the leg, won the match.
It swept the leg, and
beat the
90s all over the Three Ninjas. So that's the verdict today. All right. So any final thoughts there? Any final thoughts there, Chance? I know you kind of seem to agree with us.
No, yeah, 80s wins today, all day, every day. Three Ninjas, great little time capsule movie, but I think if you want real hardcore 80s martial arts action, gotta be Karate Kid 2.
Absolutely. So I'm going to enjoy this short-lived victory because, I know it may not continue because RJ is going to come back at me with some of his favorites.
Let's see what the next episode is and see if that's going to continue.
All right. I don't know, RJ. Don't be so confident.
Oh, you're going down. You are so
First of all, before we have the next episode, let me just say real quick, do not let our words be the end-all be-all. You get to have your voice heard because we'll be putting up a poll on the Facebook page with these two movies. You guys vote which one you think is a better representation.
All right, awesome. Yes, we're going to put up the Facebook poll. Unfortunately, I don't think the movies are on YouTube, but, if you have seen them or if you feel like you want to search them out and watch them, feel free to watch the movies and then vote and let us know. Do you agree with the unanimous verdict today? The first unanimous 80s verdict. Do you agree with us? So we'll definitely love to see what you say. And yes, I'm going to tee up our next episode. The next one we have on the docket, these two movies are loosely connected, but, I felt like I wanted to throw these two together. It's basically, they're superhero movies of a certain kind. They're superhero comic book movies of a certain kind. So for the 80s, we have the immortal, legendary Howard the Duck from 1986. The George Lucas produced Marvel Comics. Actually, is it the first Marvel Comics movie?
Yes.
Am I not mistaken on that?
First Marvel movie ever made.
Yes, Howard the Duck from 1986. Right. So
with Leah Thompson. Speaking of Back to the Future,
and young Tim Robbins, and a lot of 80s actors you'll see. So we're getting into that movie where the duck from Duck World gets transplanted to Hey, stop shaking your head. I may like this movie. All right, so
what was the other movie it's going up against?
And the other movie it's going up against is one of your all-time favorites, Ryan. One of your all-time favorites, RJ. You knew on Nostalgia Goggles it was coming. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie from 1995.
Yes.
They were the
super. Might have a very short-lived victory.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Well, I don't know. So the plan
of this moment.
This one is a no-win situation for the 80s. Let me tell you right now.
Listen to me right now. The plan as of now is to have, if we can line up the schedule, to have Mark Borich come on, and I know he has a soft spot for Howard the Duck. He also loves Power Rangers. So we may see, this could get interesting. So that's what we're going to do next time. That has been Nostalgia Goggles for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this show. I love this show, and I know RJ loves doing it with me. We're having so much fun. We have so many guest books already, so many more movies to talk about. And again, Ryan, thank you for being here today. Chance, thank you for producing for us again. So I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams. Be sure to check out all our other content on Full Metal Media, our trivia, our other talk shows that we do. Chance's Full Metal 5, which is an awesome show, top 5 show. And then also check out the content that we're involved with over at Worldwide Movie Games. We have other trivia matches that we do over there. So I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams, signing out for today, and put those nostalgia goggles back on.